We are really getting very close to the 2022 midterm elections. And what I want to do is take a look at some of the most important races, potentially what we might call bellwether races, also potentially difference making races as far as the US Senate is concerned, see where things are, and talk about where we go from here. Now, a little bit later on in the program, many of you, dozens and dozens of you, emailing me over the weekend about so many of the incredible debates that took place over this weekend. Marjorie Taylor Greene debating her opponent, Marcus Flowers. Herschel Walker debating Raphael Warnock. Ron Johnson debating Mandela Barnes. Carrie Lake in a very strange CNN interview about whether or not she would accept the results. We're going to look at all of that. But to first set the stage, let's take a look at some of what I consider to be the most important races, either because they could be the difference maker in who controls the Senate, or because they have some other particular importance, like the Pennsylvania gubernatorial election. Now, I know people are going to email and say, but David, sir, you missed this race or you missed that race, and it's so important. I can't look at every race. I'm also not looking at any congressional races in this segment because it's very unlikely that the congressional balance will depend on one seat. And so there's just so many congressional races to look at that I'm not doing that right now. But let's just start going down the list and see where these races stand. First and foremost, Pennsylvania governor. Pennsylvania governor matters so much because when you look at swing states for a presidential election, and then you look at which of the swing states could be the sole difference maker in who becomes the next president of the United States, Pennsylvania is at or near the top of that list. And Doug Mastriano, the Republican candidate in Pennsylvania, is openly running on a big lie campaign platform. If given the opportunity, if Doug Mastriano is the governor of Pennsylvania in 2024, he gets to choose the Secretary of State, which oversees the election, and he will pick someone who would be willing to just straight up try to steal Pennsylvania's electoral votes. If a Democrat wins and they don't like it, they will try to steal it for the Republican. This is an extraordinarily important race. The good news here is that Josh Shapiro, the Democratic candidate, is winning by an average of 10 points. That is a significant lead. I'm not going to say this after every one of these races, but assume nothing. Everyone must vote. This is just a reflection of where the polling today is, based on the best data we have. There's still time. Things can depart from the polling. But this one so far is looking pretty good. Josh Shapiro, there's very little to say about Josh Shapiro because he's so uncontroversial. Some might say he's milquetoast. Others will say he's just a completely normal person who isn't going to try to steal any elections. This one is looking good, and we really have to hope that Josh Shapiro does win. Also in Pennsylvania is the Senate race. The Senate race is television Dr. Mehmet Oz against the Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. Oz is the Republican, Fetterman is the Democrat. John Fetterman had a stroke months ago. There is now a big campaign in which Oz's campaign is participating, even if Oz himself is less overtly participating in it, to basically say because of the stroke, Fetterman can't be a senator. We already addressed that last week in quite a bit of detail. The good news here is that Fetterman's winning. The bad news here is that Fetterman isn't winning by that much. Right now, it's about a 3.5 point margin on average for Fetterman in recent polling. Pennsylvania is maybe the most important state in the midterms, both because of it's the Senate race and it's the gubernatorial. Our friends in Pennsylvania, I hope every single one of you is planning to vote. Florida. Florida has a very interesting Senate race. And again, the Senate may come down to just one seat. So every one of these big Senate races is important. Incumbent Republican Marco Rubio, kind of a pathetic character. There's just something about him that's very pathetic. He, in a bad way, not in the old philosophical sense, he is facing a challenge from Congresswoman Val Demings on the Democratic side. It's not looking great for Val Demings, but this is still potentially winnable. Rubio is up by somewhere between 4 and 5 points. We will be carrying the debate between Rubio and Demings. You know, it might have been rescheduled, so it might be tomorrow. It might be later on in the month. Anyway, when it happens, if it does, I will carry it. Florida voters, you've got an important race there as well. Also in Florida is the gubernatorial race. And again, when we think about, listen, think about Florida. Florida could be the difference maker in who becomes president in 2024. But moreover, the guy who wants to be reelected as governor, Ron DeSantis, may end up being the Republican presidential nominee in 2024. So this one is doubly important. And as I've said before, it's not looking good for Charlie Crist, the Democratic challenger. Ron DeSantis has a comfortable lead of just under 8 points. That will be difficult to overcome. But listen, all of our Florida viewers should be voting regardless because of that Senate race. So when you're there, you vote for governor. We try to get Ron DeSantis out, even though it is an uphill battle. Then we go to North Carolina. This one has not gotten that much attention, but it really should because it's so close. Sherry Beasley is the Democratic nominee. Ted Budd is the Republican nominee. It's almost a tie, okay? If you look at the only polling from the last month, okay, it's a tie and the Republican +1. And on average, including earlier polling, Real Clear Politics has this as a 1.5 point lead for Ted Budd. Let's not sleep on North Carolina. And I know there's the assumption in North Carolina, the undecideds are going to turn out for the Republican and all the different things. What better thing do we have to do than vote? Okay, let's vote and let's see where we get. But that's a race not getting as much attention, and it really should. North Carolina, you can vote for Sherry Beasley. Then we go to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I'll be honest, I don't really know exactly where this race is going right now because there was an absolutely humiliating debate over the weekend where the incumbent Republican Senator Ron Johnson was booed. He was openly laughed at, and he bombed in his debate against challenger Mandela Barnes, who, by the way, Mandela Barnes has been a guest on this program. You can go check out in the archives on YouTube or on our website, my interview with Mandela Barnes. Super smart guy. Barnes crushed the debate. So all of the polling I have is at least 8 days old. It has Johnson leading by just under 3 points. Even if that's the case today, that Johnson is leading by about 3 points, this one is possible. And the disastrous debate performance for Johnson over the weekend may hurt him further. So this is a very important race. This is a possible seat that can be taken from Republicans. Then, of course, we have the state of Arizona, 2 important races there. We covered the Arizona Senate debate. That's incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly, challenged by MAGA Trumpist Blake Masters. Blake Masters is horrible and dishonest and unethical and just vile, a gross, gross guy. He scrubbed all of the violently anti-abortion stuff from his website after the primary, but now is kind of trying to explain it away, and he can't. He is a big lie proponent, although he downplayed that during the debate a week and a half ago with Mark Kelly. Right now, the good news is Kelly is up 4.5. The bad news is Kelly should be up 40, but Kelly was not particularly good in the debate. Kelly is not like an electric, exciting guy. So if you vote in Arizona, not only do you have this Senate race, but you also have maybe even more disturbingly, the Arizona gubernatorial race. In Arizona, the incumbent governor, Doug Ducey, is leaving, and there is an open seat. The Democratic nominee is Katie Hobbs. The Republican nominee is one of the most aggressively weaponized from a disinformation, big lie standpoint candidates, Kari Lake. She is Trump endorsed. She is Trump loved. Right now, it pains me to say this, Kari Lake is winning by just under 1 point. And the last 2 polls that were done, an Insider Advantage poll and an OHPI poll, each has Lake ahead by 3. Kari Lake is a lunatic. Again, it's sort of like if Herschel Walker were to win. If Kari Lake wins, it is another serious humiliation for the United States. Our Arizona viewers, you in Pennsylvania, you've got a lot on your shoulders here. We really have to do everything we can to prevent Kari Lake from winning. We then have in Ohio, J.P. Mandel, right? No, J.D. Vance versus Tim Ryan. Tim Ryan is not the best candidate. His debate performance was not exactly beautiful. But J.D. Vance is a Trump ass kisser exactly the way that Tim Ryan described him in the last debate. And sadly, J.D. Vance is winning by just under 1 point. And the polling seems to be moving in Vance's favor. If you vote in Ohio, this is a big one. And then lastly, in Georgia, we have, I've got to do the Herschel Walker one as well. Second to last, the state of Georgia. It's incumbent Republican Brian Kemp versus challenger Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams is extraordinary. Kemp is horrible, and Kemp is winning by 5. Okay? So our Georgia voters, many extraordinarily important races for you. And let me just get the Walker-Warnock numbers up as well, because those are so important. In the Walker-Warnock race, and we will get to their debate a little bit later, Raphael Warnock is up by a hair over 3 points, but Herschel Walker is gaining on him. So Georgia, I know I didn't do Texas, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona, multiple important races. I hope everybody there is voting. We'll get to the debates later in the show. The David Pakman Show's longest running sponsor is Blinkist, the app that takes thousands of nonfiction books, boils each of them down into an explainer you can read or listen to in 15 minutes. Blinkist also condenses episodes of popular podcasts into 15-minute explainers. I've been using Blinkist for years to supplement the books I read. I love reading. I read all the time. But there's even more books I don't have time to read, and you can often find those nonfiction books on Blinkist and consume the entire thing in 15 minutes. My favorite new feature on the app is Blinkist Connect, which lets you share your Blinkist premium account with someone else. You basically get 2 accounts for the price of one, and then you can also share Blinkist books and podcasts between users. I have a joint Blinkist premium account with my girlfriend. Blinkist Connect lets us sync together what books and podcasts we're listening to on Blinkist, sparks many interesting discussions. We just listened to Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power, the new version. Robert Greene, super interesting writer. Find his books fascinating. You can try Blinkist free for 7 days and get 25% off a premium subscription at Blinkist.com/David Pakman. The link is down below.